All right. Let's start in, let's start in pigeon on the right-hand side. So pigeon, and in yin, it's actually swan. So you want to line up your right knee to the outside of your right hip. If you want a pillow or blanket, if you're in the room, I can hand it to you. Or you can lie over onto your, put the weight on your right buttocks and just bend your left knee a little bit. Whatever works for you. And you'll be happy to hear we're not staying lifted for very long. Just take 3 nice full breaths and then lay yourself down into sleeping swan. So walking your hands out in front of you. The fully expressed pose is you have your hands in prayer stretching out on the floor, and you can feel this line go through your body. So you have the invisible spine through the actual spine and back to the invisible spine down the inside of your left leg. So maybe even reach through your big left toe to straighten out and lengthen your foot. You can also make adjustments by bringing your arms underneath your head if you need a little bit more support here. Let's start with the Ute prayer. Earth, teach me freedom as the eagle soars in the sky. Earth, teach me regeneration as the seed which rises each spring. Earth, teach me to forget myself as melted snow forgets its life. Earth, teach me to remember kindness as the dry fields weep with the rain. Whether you're reading anthroposophy or listening to other seers, initiates, the human being has been put on earth to learn about freedom. It's the only spiritual being that has freedom as one of its rights, one of its capacities. When we study the hierarchies, the angels, the archangels, the seraphim, the cherubim, and then I can't remember any of the names. Sometimes the human being is referred to as the 10th hierarchy. And unlike angels, we are not compelled, we are not forced to follow God's law or law of creation or rules of source. Same stuff, different language. But instead, we're left recklessly free. And as any ruler knows, there is a huge risk in freedom. And we can look at our human history and see that story after story plays on this theme, is around this theme, touches on this theme, just as much as right now, our current events are absolutely touching on this theme. And start to walk your arms back towards you, lifting up your chest and roll onto your buttocks. And you have your right heel in front of you, and you can adjust your thighs so they're 90 degrees. And we're gonna do this nice, weird half butterfly, half dragonfly forward fold, where most likely your heel is kind of pushing into your belly in a good way. Growing up, I was born in a Camp Hill community set up to take care of handicapped adults. My dad studied and became a Christian community priest. My mother studied and became a Waldorf teacher, though she says the Waldorf schools are the last place that needs fully trained Waldorf teachers. She thinks Waldorf trained teachers should go everywhere. And I grew up going to Waldorf schools from nursery, daycare, until I graduated from high school. And story after story after story is about freedom, is about freeing each other. And the way that I was introduced to listening to Bible stories, one way, it's not the only way, but was to not only look at like maybe historical or what actually happens in the story, but also to look at it symbolically. And that when we listen to the story about a man, it's about all of ours, whether we're men or women or undefined. It's about all of our spirit in us, this leading force, if we let it be. And inhale, roll up, bring your right hand behind you, stretch out your left side. It's like raise your arm for freedom. Yeah, stretch it up. Maybe add a little whoop. And then with your exhale, you're gonna switch your legs and we're gonna turn to the front of the yoga mat, bend your left knee, and sweep your right leg behind you. So if we think of, just even the classic story, and I'm going to stick to some of the traditions, imagining that the dragon actually represents evil. But, just even thinking of the story, oh, sorry, I didn't finish my thought on the Bible thing. Take 3 breaths here before you lay down and stretch out in sleeping swan. So every time the Bible story is about a man, it's really about this directing force in each one of us, our spirit. And when the story was about a woman, it's about our soul, the life in between survival in our physical body and the eternalness of our spirit body. So some descriptions of the soul is really the management between the two, the concert between the two. And when we're practicing yoga, we're refining this dance between the two. That's part of what we're here for. You know, you'll notice that if you move your body and you work with your body, it becomes less of an obstacle towards what your spirit wants. Or this innate kind of holy drive that is human. So having that experience with being how to kind of listen to Bible stories, and this came later in life, the analysis and whatnot. As a kid, you just listen to the story. But it makes me also remember the stories that I heard as a child with those with those lenses on. And so we think about, the princess, chained and imprisoned by the dragon. And then the knight in shining armor coming to free her. We have to work really hard right now to drop our contemporary, very like literal hearing of the story. And let's rephrase the story in a way that we'd never tell a child this story, right? So the story would go something like, oh, your soul has been trapped and imprisoned by these dark forces that lead us into self-loathing and addiction and hate. And these forces are so big and frightening that they appear to have fire coming out of their mouth, and they spread their wings and the whole world becomes dark. But there's a light in each and every one of us, the light of our spirit that can be so piercing and so illuminating that as if our spirit were a sword, it can slay and dispel the illusion of separateness and overcome the grips of addiction and be liberated, free to actually express its tenderness. A very different telling of the same story. To free our soul to be, not mired in constant navel gazing or, this is part of the sadness and the tragedy of addiction, where it just actually cloaks your perspective to yourself, like a little similar to how depression can keep your focus on you instead of awakening to this joy and kind of spirit-driven mission of taking care of each other, of taking care of each other's souls so that our spirits can be a force of light and guidance in our own life. Having like that sort of truth of the clarity of thinking to like cut through the bullshit. And start to walk your hands back towards you. Roll onto your lovely rump. Yes, I said it. And then come straight down through the middle. So here you'll have your left knee still bent. You might slide your thigh in so it's 90 degrees. And then come into this forward bend. So what if we just dismiss this story because it's just so worn out? We dismiss these stories out of our own kind of inability to move beyond the words of the stories, essentially, or the kind of inundated habit we have of how now we've become so sensitive to the gendered nature of things. It's not okay to say, the man is good and the woman is bad. I mean, we knew this all along. It never was what was being said. Our language has evolved from being a symbolic language, ritual language, to kind of being squished and crunched into this materialistic interpretation and this literal sense. And instead of creating our own stories now, it's so easy just to look back and be like, why did they have these stories? It's all their fault. They kept perpetuating this. It's like we all did, first of all. But maybe we need to actually effort in our thinking to imagine what it's like to actually speak symbolically. What is able to be revealed through symbolic language that we cannot touch with just materialism and literalism, fundamentalism. That is so much part of the perversion of these symbolic texts, these ancient symbolic texts, to be put into these modern abusive and suppressive context. Maybe notice if you can soften a little bit more. So as we work in supporting and promoting freedom in this world, in learning how to love people so they are free to be more themselves, it is only to our benefit if we learn to touch back into what is holy in the language and liberate our language from this like narrow-minded literalism. If it doesn't, if the context is old, it doesn't fit there. And then roll up, place your left hand behind your left leg and stretch the whole right side of your body. Ta-da! And then bring your hips back down, cross your ankles, roll over your crossed ankles to come into child's pose. We're going to transition, a nice gradual transition to our fire nature, our yang nature. Let your hips soften and sink back. The yin is so often about what is hidden, what is mysterious and unknown or invisible. So maybe make a quiet, private wish, a dedication, and a commitment. And then roll up. And we're just going to come into Sesa pose. So sitting on your heels. If you really want extra fire, feel free to tuck your toes under. Like it's spicy. And then bring your hands to heart center. Let your palms push together. Let your elbows be heavy. You want to feel your thumbs on your breastbone. Feel your shoulder blades dropping behind you. Whether or not you're sitting on your heels or your toes, it's really okay to sit on your heels. Feel the uprightness in your spine. Close your eyes, empty your breath. Let's take a big inhale together. And then if you haven't tucked your toes under, tuck your toes under now and see if you can actually rock up and lift your knees. Oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah, this is a nice one. And then we're gonna see if we can stand all the way up, keeping our heels lifted. Oh, I did a little totter. And then rewind it. Keep your steadiness and your breath. Imagine your shoulders and your hips are sliding down an invisible wall. And then bring your knees back down, bring your hands forward and slap your feet out. Woo! And then rock and stretch the tops of your feet. And then come into tabletop and inhale, lift up your head, your heart, and your hips. And your exhale, push the ground away, pull your belly up, arching your back into cat. Inhale, lift up into cow. And then exhale, push into cats. Maybe float your cat if you want. And then come to tabletop, tuck your toes under, and reach up with your hips transitioning through bear to downward facing dog. So bear, you can think of bear as like downward facing dog with your knees deeply bent. And then straighten your legs as they are available. I mean, your legs are so totally available, but just as much as you need to straighten your legs. And with your inhale, stretch your right leg up to the sky and wiggle it around, shake it a little bit, like sparkle your toes, twinkle your toes. Wee, wee. Maybe kick your butt a couple of times. And then bend your knee and let your hips spin open. So you're quite active here. Your leg is active, your foot's active and flexed. You're pulling your heel to your buttocks. And you want to feel that you're pushing equally with both arms. We tend to push a little more with the right, and that twists our body, twists our shoulders. And then we're twisting our shoulders and our hips in the same way, which turns out not to be a twist in our spine. And then with your exhale, relax your right leg down. Inhale, glide forward to plank. Exhale, bend your knees, and like a locomotive train, I don't know, the engine thing, the wheel thing, pull your hips back and come back to downward facing dog. All right, I'm going to work on that one. Inhale, stretch your left leg. Wiggle it out, shake it out. Imagine you're throwing sparks with your toes in all directions. Bing, bing, bing. And then maybe kick your butt, straighten your leg a couple of times, and then bend your knee and just move a little slowly and roll your hip open, trying to keep mindful that you're squaring your chest still. So that's part of why it feels like such an active pose. You can let your right heel be heavy. Start to invite the breath through your nose, your Ujjayi breath. And then with your exhale, bring your left leg down. Inhale, forward to plank. And this time, lower all the way down to the ground. Point your toes, push your toenails to the ground, and inhale, low cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. All right, so now, so a little bit in our practice too, these practice in the polarities. First we do yin, and then we're going to do yang. Yang, oh my God, that's the American yang. But this is partly to really honor this wholeness of our being, Take a full inhale. I didn't say holiness, but it could be. Empty your breath all the way. And then float your feet in between your hands. And inhale, fly your halfway lift. And let's take a couple breaths here. So this might be a new variation to you. You want to imagine you're broadening your wrists. And there is something in it for me where I feel like I find a lightness in my chest to really lift up through my shoulder blades. Feel the expansion in your back body. It's usually easier than it is with the traditional halfway lift to come really so you're 90 degrees to your legs, or like 85. That's also cool. Take another full inhale. Breathe into your back body. And with your exhale, bend your knees, most likely, unless you're uber bendy, and hug the back of your knees, feeling kind of the cuddle of this pose, and maybe just extra appreciate the touch, even if it's from yourself, remembering how many people in this world are touch deprived right now. Let's take a couple extra breaths here so you can feel that even with your knees bent, your hamstrings are stretching. And then softly release your arms to the ground, root down with your feet and roll up one vertebrae at a time, stretching your arms up to the sky, looking up in between your hands. And with your exhale, Samastitihi, coming into a balanced standing pose. Inhale, stretch your arms up. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, keeping your hands on the ground this time, halfway lift. And then exhale, step back to plank, lower halfway down, chaturanga, or all the way down to the ground. And inhale, upward facing dog or low cobra. Stretch your big toes, either way. Exhale, downward facing dog, inviting a small bend into your knee. Both knees, a matching pair. So as we try to balance, balance or enable the relationship of our soul being good for our spirit and good for our body. So our soul is this place that we make all of these choices from. We want to start to notice that even in our body, we have forces that move upward and we have forces that move downward. Take another full inhale. Empty your breath all the way and walk or float your feet in between your hands. Inhale, halfway lift, maybe flying your arms if you like it. Remember, disobedience might be needed to be exercised. And with your exhale, hug the back of your knees. And then root down and roll up. Stretch up tall. And with your exhale, Samastitihi. Inhale, stretch your arms up high. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, halfway lift. And then either jump to chaturanga or step to plank and lower down. Inhale, upward facing dog or low cobra, active legs. Exhale, downward facing dog. So even in your downward facing dog here, you can feel that you push down with your hands so that your spine can actually extend upwards. You want to feel that you're rooting down with the back of your legs, and then you'll notice that you can actually lift up the front part of your legs. Take another full inhale, empty your breath all the way, and then float your feet in between your hands. Even if you have to jump and then walk a little bit. Inhale, fly your halfway lift. Exhale, hug your forward bend. Root down, rise up, stretch up tall. And this time you're going to catch your right wrist, lift high, and then with your exhale, bend to your left, keeping your heart open and lifted. Let's take a full cycle of breath here. So feel here that when you root down with your legs, you have more capacity to lift up with your chest. Then with your next inhale, stretch up to center, Switch your grip, get a little higher, and with your exhale, take it to the other side. So if we're totally collapsing here, like our upper body sinks towards our lower body, and we slam into our hips, really. We want to imagine that all of our yoga postures are actually extending away from our joints. So we want to find light in our joints. Take another full inhale, stretch up to center, and exhale, bow down. If it's too much for you, you might want to slow down. That's okay. Inhale, halfway lift. Walk or float. Exhale, sweet chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog or low cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, extend your right leg up to the sky. And with your exhale, step your right foot all the way forward to your right thumb. And this time we're going to bring the left knee down to the ground. And then reach your chest forward and sweep your arms up. Squeeze your inner thighs together and then drop into the stretch with your exhale. So these are both the forces. Squeezing your thighs together, you can pull it up through your navel, through your chest, find the rising element of the pose, and then drop into this uber stretchy element of the pose. And then inhale, squeeze again. And this time, see if you can marry these two and bring them into balance. So there's a little bit of a squeeze, but a little bit of a surrender. It's like a squeezing surrender. Now take another full inhale. And with your exhale, just open arm twist to your right. Reach through your fingertips. Inhale, back up to center. And then exhale, ride your breath through chaturanga. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, down dog. Inhale, stretch your left leg up to the sky. With your exhale, step your left foot all the way forward to your left thumb. Let your right knee come down to the ground, and inhale, sweep your arms up. And then exhale, drop into the stretch here. Inhale, feel that you're engaging your root lock, you're squeezing your thighs together, your abdominals lift up. Exhale, drop in so you're feeling the stretch, especially in the front of your right thigh and in your groins. And now inhale and try to find this balance, this tension, this creative tension. Just like it's creative to have this tension between belonging on earth and belonging in this spiritual realm. Take another full inhale. Exhale, open arm twist to your left. Reach through your fingertips. Imagine you're actually growing your nails longer. I mean, you are. And then inhale up to center. Exhale, sweet chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog or low cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Let your knees soften a little bit to find the extension in your spine. Take a full inhale, empty your breath all the way, and then float your feet in between your hands. Inhale, halfway lift, maybe flying it to feel your freedom. Exhale, hug in, forward bend. And now root down, but you're going to bend your knees and swoop up to Utkatasana. It's a swoop. You now swooped. Find your rest on this invisible seat. Again, noticing that we're creatively balancing this pull down to the earth and this effort up towards the sky. Take another full inhale with your exhale. Open arm twist to your right. Reach through your fingertips. Feel the relationship between both of your hands, what it does to your heart. And then inhale to center with your exhale. Open arm twist to your left. It is a little bit of this tada movement. I'm here to be wild and free. And then inhale up to center, and with your exhale, vinyasa. Bow forward. Inhale, find the length. Exhale, jump back. Inhale, upward facing doggy. Exhale, downward facing dog. Bow wow. Inhale, stretch your right leg up to the sky. And with your exhale, bend your knee and tap your right knee to your right shoulder. Oh, it's really hard to tap it. Inhale, stretch your leg long. And with your exhale, step your right foot forward and rise up, crescent lunge. And with your exhale, bring your hands to heart center. Hinge just about like 30 degrees forward. Twist from your upper back first, and then drop your elbow to the outside of your right knee. Maybe you push down on your bottom hand to get a little bit more twist. If you have a sore back, don't force it. You really want to allow your muscles to move you rather than your outside force. Take a full inhale here, and then feel that you can ride your breath and exhale into warrior two. Inhale, reverse your warrior. Exhale, I love chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog or low cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, stretch your left leg up to the sky. And with your exhale, see if you can tap your left shoulder with your knee. It's usually like the middle of your upper arm, so don't be discouraged. Inhale, stretch your leg long. Exhale, step your left foot to your left thumb. Right heel is lifted. Rise up, crescent lunge. And then with your exhale, you're going to bring your hands to heart center. Hinge just a little bit. Twist from your middle and upper back first, and then actually bring your right elbow to the outside of your left knee. If you want a little bit more, you can lovingly push down on your bottom hand, and this will actually twist you open more, and your heart will lift to meet behind your hands. Take a full inhale here. And with your exhale, expand out into warrior two. Yeah, inhale, reverse your warrior. And exhale, sweet vinyasa. Inhale, upward facing dog or low cobra. Mindful not to dip your shoulders down too low. Exhale, downward facing dog. Find your downward facing dog, this balance of weight in your feet, weight in your hands. Notice where the lifting in the pose is. Notice where the surrender in the pose is. Take another full inhale. And then with your exhale, I want you to jump your feet to the outside of your hands. Hoya! And come into Malasana, Garland Pose. Bring your hands to heart center. If your heels are on the ground, you can try putting your feet wider apart or lifting up your hips a little bit. Now interlace your fingers and inhale, lift up into a baby back bend. Ta-da! And then exhale down through the squat to Malasana. Now place your hands down, shoulder distance apart. If you've never lifted up into crow before, you're welcome to take your hands a little bit wider. It can be more accessible. And then you're going to try to bring your knees behind your elbows, and you're going to shift your weight forward and lift up one foot, maybe two, lifting your big toes to your heels. And then you're going to actually come back to Malasana. Bring your feet back down, lift up your heart. Beautiful. And now reach your hands inside out, palms forward, lift up your hips so your hips and knees are lined up. You guys know what's coming here. And you're going to walk back, staying in this wonderful form. We don't do this in public very often. All right, beautiful. Now walk back to where you were. And then come back down, squatting in Malasana. Ooh. And we're going to do a variation here. I want you to drop your head and walk your hands forward so you feel a little traction in your spine even. And then bring your hands back to prayer. Lift your chest. fire yourself up for your second crow. So bring your knees behind you. You start by, you actually lift your butt up. You can also use blocks here in different ways. Putting one underneath your feet, for instance. Feel the squeeze of your knees together, lift up your butt. And then with your exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, stretch your right leg up to the sky. With your exhale, bend your knee and let your hips spin open. Take another full, sweet inhale here. And with your exhale, tap your right knee to your left elbow. Inhale, stretch your right leg long. And with your exhale, step your right foot all the way forward to your right hand. Now spin your left heel down to the ground. Warrior one. Inhale, lift up. Now, you might not find this accessible, but maybe you do. Bring your hands to heart center. And we're going to revolve our warrior one. So we're keeping the heel down. And you're going to come with your back heel down into the twist. Now, if it's too much for you, just lift up your heel. But this is the progression we were working with today. Take another full inhale, feel the lift of your chest. And with your exhale, bravely open up warrior two. And then inhale, reverse your triangle. So revolve triangle, reverse triangle. You're really lengthening the whole right side of your body. Feel the lift up out of your waist. And then with your exhale, you're going to fly into half moon. Beautiful. Stretch through your arms like you're trying to reach down further into the earth and up higher into the sky. With your exhale, bring your left hand down, square your hips. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, sweet chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, stretch your left leg up to the sky. Exhale, bend your knee, let your hips spin open. And then tap your left knee to your right elbow. Inhale, extend your left leg. Exhale, step your left foot forward and rise up in warrior one, spinning your right heel down. Rise up. And then with your exhale, you're going to bring your hands to heart center and you're going to take your warrior one into a twist. So by keeping your heel down, it's a lot more of it's challenging. So we've progressed into this pose. Just because it's called warrior one, don't fool yourself that it's easier. Beautiful. And then exhale, open up warrior two. We're nearly there. Inhale, reverse your triangle. Feel the lovely extension on your left side. And then with your exhale, fly into half moon. So you want to celebrate like all four directions here. Well, maybe even five. Feel the line from your right foot to the crown of your head. Feel the line between your hands. You were imagining trying to stretch your arms straight apart. And feel your standing leg rooting down. With your exhale, bring your right hand down, square your hips, keep your right leg lifted. Now, if you want, you can throw in a handstand here, or you can go straight to chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog or low cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Soften your knees a little bit, pull your hips up and back. And then bring your elbows down onto the ground. Let's take a couple breaths here in the dolphin pose. So your forearms are on the ground and you can do either what Pear is doing and interlace your fingers, or you can have your hands flat on the ground with your Arms stretching out from your elbows. Now tiptoe your feet closer to your face. This is a really great pose to get stronger for headstand. And then inhale, stretch your right leg up to the sky. Again, feel that you have to root down to lift something up. You know, I have to be like really on the earth to be grounded enough to host my spirit. And then switch your legs. And then come down to child's pose. If child's pose isn't comfortable for you and isn't a good recovery pose, then come to whatever pose is a good recovery pose for you. And then inhale, lift up your chest. And this time I want you to tuck your toes under and stand upright on your knees. Bring your hands behind your back. Yogi's choice. You can either have your fingers pointing down, or you can spin your fingers so they point up. Squeeze your elbows together, expand your chest, lift your chest, slide your hips forward already. Lift up out of your waist, and like you're arching over a big barrel, come into camel pose. And then release your hands down and see if you can grab onto your heels. So for most of us, we can with our toes tucked under. And now just feel the effort in your body. You want to feel like if you were to let go of your feet, you might flip open. Or if you just pushed a little bit more with your hips, you'd start to roll like a wheel. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, child's pose. And then slide your arms forward, setting up for dolphin again. So we really want to honor our own body and where we're at. So dolphin might be just where you hang out. You want to make sure your head's free from touching the ground. And if it's not, if your head's bumping to the ground, you just need to squeeze your elbows closer together. And then lift your leg up, one of them. And now either stay here or practice hopping into forearm balance, lifting into forearm balance, noticing that looking forward actually helps catch your legs when you lift up. You want to land quietly like a beautiful big fat panther. And then find your way back to child's pose. Very nice, very nice. And then inhale, lift up onto your knees again. This time, yogi's choice, either tuck your toes under if you really felt like you're on the edge of your flexibility when you grabbed your heels, or if you feel like you have a little bit more space, you can stretch your toes out. If you feel like you have a lot of space, you can think about going into Kapotasana. Inhale, lift up, get tall, and with your exhale, come into the camel pose, come into the back bend here. So feel where the effort, where do you root down to discover the lift up? You start to notice that when we move our body, we actually create more freedom in our body for our soul to flourish in a way that supports our spirit. And then inhale, lift up. And with your exhale, come into child's pose. And then inhale, lift up your chest. And we're going to do a different transition. Roll onto your buttocks. Oh, there you are. And then bring your, sorry, I have to do this in my head all the time. You want to bring your left leg in front of your right knee. Inhale, stretch your right arm up. And with your exhale, come into the seated twist. So your left hand is helping you stay upright and lifted in your chest. It can either be on the floor or wrapping around behind you like Pear's doing, eventually even coming into the bind here. Feel the height in your spine, this grounding, as well as lifting, and then feel that then you have capacity to twist. You create the space to move into. And unwind. And today, let's do our kindergarten version. So you're going to put your hands in front of you. You're going to stretch your legs out. And then you're going to twist all the way 359 degrees-ish. And like you kind of trip yourself into the other side. Feel that your right foot is on the ground, all points of your foot. You can even push down with it. Feel both your sit bones on the ground. And then stretch your left arm up, keeping a lift in your upper body. Feel that prana, that lift. And with your exhale, twist. So we find that when we have an imbalance in our polarity, our human nature, the polarity of our human nature, if we have an imbalance, then it becomes distorted for our soul. Yeah. So it's a little bit like if you totally ignore your body, you actually then end up going out into fantasy rather than spiritual activity often. You know, there's nothing tethered to this earth. But if you totally ignore the invisible world and get completely earthbound, that also perverts our human nature. And then unwind and slowly lower yourself down to Shavasana. If your lower back is sensitive, you can always have your knees bent. Nice way to get into a nice lying position is to lift up your hips, roll your spine down, and then stretch your legs long. You can even lift up your chest and squeeze your shoulder blades together. With your next inhale, invite your breath to the edges of your body. And maybe even think of something you're grateful for as you start to wiggle your fingers and your toes and your face and your nose. On your inhale, reach your arms up over your head, stretch your feet away from your hands, get long, and on your exhale, curl into a ball. If it's comfortable for you, go onto your side. If not, you can rock up into a seated position. And then let's bring our hands to prayer. Feel the ground below you. Find the lightness within to lift up. Maybe remember the person you dedicated your class to. Remember the intention or wish you set. Maybe the commitment you made. Empty your breath and let's take a big inhale together. Bring your prayer hands to your third eye. Invite the divine light. And as we bow forward together, we say, Namaste. And so much love. Woo! Thank you so much for your actions. Go out there and be wild and free and disobedient. Yeah. Okay. Y'all have a great day.